Hi guys, for those of you who are new to this, Rajiv Khanna is the managing director at immigration.com. I consider him the all-knowing and he's willing to come out here and help us chat about the H-1B. This is a great opportunity for you guys, be it you're in the lottery, you're applying for it, you're thinking about it, you want to learn more about it, to get your questions asked and answered by him, and we'll try to make this as collaborative and fun as possible. But Rajiv, do you want to do your small intro and then we'll get ready with the questions?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you or not see you all. At least I see one person, Infinity. Hello. With the H-1B season coming up, there's a bunch of questions we keep answering time and time again. If it's okay with all of you, I'll begin with those 4 questions or 3 questions as far as I can remember. And then anytime you have any question or you have a comment or some words of wisdom for me, just raise your hand in Zoom, and I'm sure Aina will be able to accommodate you right there. We don't have to wait till the end. This is a small enough gathering. So the point here is really to create a database of knowledge more than anything else. And of course, to answer your individual questions. The first issue that was raised was, can H-1B applicants apply through multiple companies for lottery? There's a lawsuit pending in Washington, D.C. that says, no, I believe the court did not do too sympathetic an ear. I think the cause is genuine, but it's very difficult to win these kinds of cases in court where there is a discretion element by the government. So the bottom line first, can you apply through multiple companies? Yes, but all the job offers must be genuine. They can't be made up just to increase your chances of success. And 2, the companies must be completely unrelated. The word related and the concept of related is interpreted quite vastly and quite generously, in fact, perhaps even over generously in this area of the law. Even if, for example, husband and wife own different companies, it's considered to be a related set of companies. So I will conclude by saying you can apply through multiple companies as long as it's done honestly and through unrelated companies. Job offers must be genuine. Second question, these questions were asked this morning. I had them on my LinkedIn inbox. One of the questions was, we have from March 1st to 18th to apply. Would my chances be better if I apply on the 1st or the 2nd as opposed to if I apply on the 17th? And the answer is no. Every day has equal dignity. So you can apply on any one of those days and you would still be able to get your place in the queue is the same, or in the lottery is the same. The next question that was asked of me again this morning on my LinkedIn pages, there was a question about, oh, can I transfer my lottery? I have been answering that question every year for the past 5 years. I think lottery has been 5 years. Somebody said something. Oh, hi, Praful. I'm on H-1B valid for another 2 years, sponsored by a nonprofit. So can I transfer? Yeah, actually, I owe the Economic Times an article on this issue. I had indicated to them I'll do it last week. I'll get into that. Give me a couple of minutes. So can I transfer my lottery? The answer is no. You cannot transfer your lottery. But if your H-1B gets approved after winning the lottery, you can then transfer companies. The question of nonprofit and profit, which was just asked, I have to write an article for the Economic Times. I had promised them I'll do something this month, and that was in the month of February. But we had other issues come up, so I was making my comments on other issues in the Times. I'll write an article on this, but let me give you the summary of how it works. Let's say you have a cap exempt H-1B. You are working for National Institutes of Health. It's a government research organization, so it's exempt from the cap. The law says if simultaneously you want to work for a for-profit company, you can. So you can have an H-1B, which is cap exempt, and an H-1B, which is subject to the cap, live together as concurrent H-1Bs, but you've got to keep both jobs. If you quit your quota exempt, cap exempt job, then you are back to square one as far as your quota job is concerned or the cap job is concerned. Very odd quirk in the law, but that's how it is. So as long as you maintain both jobs, so what should you do? Well, if you have a job in the private sector, nonprofit, non-nonprofit sector, you could definitely take it up as a concurrent H-1B employment. That's a well understood and well-seasoned methodology. There's nothing new about it, nothing innovative, nothing experimental. You can do that. But each year you should keep trying for the lottery so that eventually you can be out of the shackles of having to keep two jobs, one nonprofit exempt and one for-profit. That would be my brief spiel at this time. Why don't we go ahead with the questions if you have any?
Perfect. So if you guys want to speak them out, go ahead. If you want to read them out, I think there's one here. I'll read it out. Is there a difference between H-1B applicants in STEM roles versus non-STEM roles? For example, does someone working in education have to apply for the H-1B lottery, or do they have a different process?
It is not your field that exempts you from the H-1B cap. It is your job. So once again, it's not your field, it's your job that matters. So for example, if you work at a nonprofit, and nonprofit, I mean nonprofit research organization, whose primary purpose is research. I gave the example of NIH because it's a government research organization. So state or federal government research organizations, nonprofit research organizations, whose primary purpose is research, they would qualify for this extent. You may want to, Aina, you may want to mute Praful. I think he forgot to mute himself. Aina?
Yeah, muted.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. So normally what happens is when somebody's talking so much technical law, people tend to fall asleep. I just want to make sure that I got through. So not that you looked asleep, but just in case. I don't overestimate my capacity to keep people entertained. That's not my area, unfortunately. It's very dry and it's a lot of facts and figures. So this concept of quota exempt job or cap exempt job is a very important concept. And again, I intend to cover this in my comment to the Economic Times. What happens is, let's say you work for a private employer who are subject to the cap, but they place you, and this is from a real case, they place you to work at National Institutes of Health. Now, your employer is not exempt, but your job is. Why? Because you are supporting essential functions of an exempt organization. So their function is research. What if you are doing database management? You're still exempt because without the database, they can't get their job done. So you are supporting the function. So remember, once again, it isn't your degree, it is your job that makes you cap exempt. Next question.
Feel free to speak it out or throw it in the chat.
Otherwise, I'll just discuss other things.
I have a follow-up question to the original question that I asked, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So for example, I guess, let me just give you the real life example. I work in higher education at the moment. And I was trying to understand, I know higher education is also cap exempt.
Yes.
So does that mean that there's still a lottery that I have, like, is it an H-1B lottery or is, okay. So if the employer wants to sponsor me, there's no lottery system.
You can apply anytime during the year. You are not bound to that April, October time prison.
Perfect. We have one more question come in from Evelyn. For LCAs, what is the most important thing that should be included?
All of it, because an incomplete LCA will be rejected. That one was easy, Evelyn. Ask me another easy question.
I know Rajiv can kind of enlighten us on any topic if you guys don't have questions, but I feel like especially if you guys are in specific situations, here she goes. So if you're being sponsored, you don't need to wait for H-1B.
If you are being sponsored, you don't need to wait for H-1B. There is so much wrong with that sentence. I don't know where to begin. So first of all, the word sponsor somehow implies watching a person do the swimming while you sit by the pool side with a long drink, tall drink. That's not how it works. The employer has to be very actively involved. It is the employer's case. They are not just the sponsor, they are the petitioner.
She
They are
means
supposed to do
for the H-1B cap season, just to clarify.
It's the same thing, Evelyn. The LCA has to be completed. Every single entry has to be completed. Now, going back to the sponsorship idea. So, first of all, one can never start an H-1B without an employer. There's no time when an H-1B employer would not be needed. The registration is done by the employer or their lawyers. The H-1B petition is filed by the employer through their lawyers. The requests for evidence or any bounce backs from the government are dealt with by the lawyers on behalf of the employer. So the employer is involved in every step of the way. And it is not possible to divest with the services or the need for an employer. Always need an employer. Okay.
All right. I think potentially, and Evelyn, feel free to correct us. I think she was wondering if during the H-1B cap season, do you need to wait for the H-1B?
Do you need to wait for the H-1B? Why don't you unmute yourself and let's talk? I'm a little unclear.
Perfect. In the meantime, I have a couple others. Question 1, is your official college diploma absolutely required for the H-1B petition, or would a degree verification certificate from the college be enough?
If the college is in the United States, things are a lot easier. If it is outside the USA, it can be a little bit more complicated. Let's parse this a little bit. To apply for the electronic registration, what we call lottery, you do not need to have finished your degree. You can apply for the electronic registration even when the degree is undone yet. After you win the lottery, and I hope you all win the lottery, you have 90 days to file the H-1B. If during those 90 days, you're able to procure a letter from your school that says all the educational requirements have been completed, thesis, coursework, exams cleared, and the degree is complete, it's only awaiting formal conferral, we are okay. That letter is good enough. When the letter comes from outside the United States, it tends to get stickier, but it still works in many of these cases. What people do is, that's what I recommend. Don't just get a letter. Many countries, I know that India does, we have provisional degrees. So provisional simply means it is a certificate provided by the university, which is not a formal certificate, but it is a certificate nonetheless that attests to the fact that all your degree requirements are completed. One word of caution. Sometimes universities will withhold a degree or a conferral because you haven't paid some amount of the fees, even either by mistake or for whatever reason. Remember, that's not a completed degree. You have to have completed all requirements. Otherwise, the university won't give you a letter. So to summarize, you can apply for the lottery without the degree, but when you file the H-1B in the following 90 days, have your letter from the university ready.
And just to follow up, if you have already graduated, so you've completed your coursework, there is a degree somewhere, but you don't have it. In that case, is the letter or certificate still enough, or do you require the degree?
Yeah, the letter is enough. And by the way, I forgot to mention one more thing. Remember, the H-1B is based upon minimum requirement of a bachelor's degree. So let's say you have a bachelor's degree from India. I take the example of India, it's the easiest one that comes to mind. But from any country where there's a 12-year of school followed by 4-year of college pattern, chances are even your bachelor's degree is equivalent to a US bachelor's degree. Or your experience combined with your degree is equivalent to a bachelor's degree. So even if you came to the United States for a master's degree and you have not yet finished the master's degree, but your bachelor's is complete or your bachelor's plus experience is equivalent to a US bachelor's degree, you can apply for the H-1B. The H-1B does not require a master's degree, but a master's degree increases your chances of getting through the quota.
Someone said, I already hold a nonprofit H-1B. Can I get sponsored from another franchise business as a consultant, which is in the education field?
Okay, so there are two issues there. First issue is, one, I'm assuming you will be doing a concurrent H-1B as we discussed. Two, does the job, the consulting job, require at least a bachelor's degree in a specific subject? And the third issue, which is ancillary to the above two, is consulting can be on a 1099 as an independent contractor. You have to be an employee of the company. You can't be a consultant. So they can't issue you a 1099 form, 1099, that's an IRS form we issue to independent contractors. You have to be a W-2 employee of the company.
Perfect. Is international travel okay during a pending application?
Yes. So if you go to, and I've covered everything in there. If you go to my LinkedIn page, you will see that this morning I posted 3 most asked questions, and one of them was travel. I have a very detailed entry on when you can travel, when you cannot travel as a student who's in between student lottery H-1B process. Go take a look. I think I've covered everything. So it's on immigration.com under my blogs. It's, I think, about 14th or 15th entry. So it says travel during H-1B, something like that. Review it. It's good law. I did that last year. It's still good law. There's no change in it. And if you want a link from my LinkedIn page, you can do that as well. Just see my entries from this morning.
Perfect. How do I know if your job is CAP exempt or not? Does USCIS maintain an active list of professions/jobs?
No. So professions doesn't matter. Remember we talked about that? Professions doesn't matter. The jobs does, and they do not maintain an active list like that. But how can you tell if your job is quota exempt? So let's separate. Either you are working directly at a CAP exempt organization, or your job is at a CAP exempt organization. Who are CAP exempt? As I mentioned, government research organization, state and federal, nonprofit research organizations whose primary purpose is research. If their research function is 10%, you probably won't be quota exempt. Institutions of higher learning. Higher learning means above bachelor's degree, usually, from maybe it's bachelor's and above. And affiliated institutions. Now, this is a very interesting part, at least interesting to me, may not be to you. But the way it works is, so we have schools who are our clients, high schools, middle schools who are clients. They have a tie-up with a community college locally where the teachers come to train and our students go to take advanced classes. So when you have a formal arrangement between two organizations where there's a formal affiliation or there is a common management, you might be quota exempt because your job is with the school. So all the teachers that we process for those schools, they are all CAP exempt. Why? Because they have a tie-up with the community college. So how do you tell? Well, you ask. And then you look for, you remember these buzzwords, nonprofit research, government research, or state or federal, institutions of higher learning, institutions affiliated with institutions of higher learning, either through formal written agreements or through common management. You look for these. And then you also remember, keep in the back of your mind, am I working at such a place? Even though my employer is a for-profit, are they placing me at a cap exempt organization? If yes, bingo, that job might be cap exempt.
Perfect. Hello, Rajiv, sir. I work for a small startup and my CEO will be doing the H-1B filing for me. What things should we keep in mind while filing, and do we need to have an immigration lawyer in the initial registration process?
No, not needed. Of course, our firm only charges like $50 for the registration. It's really a negligible amount of money, but it's basically simple English. If you can follow it, unless you run into some difficulty, at which point maybe you need to reach out to a lawyer. But for the H-1B filing, for heaven's sake, don't do it yourselves. Get yourself a lawyer. There's 10,000 issues involved. There's no such thing as a simple H-1B. Some companies do their own H-1Bs, but they have the same job being regurgitated, and they have HR people who are experienced in filing these. That's all they do. I still discourage that practice. Having lawyers is extremely important. There are many places where you don't need lawyers, but this is when you actually file the H-1B petition, you do need a lawyer, in my opinion. For the lottery, not really.
If a person wins the diversity lottery, would he or she still need to gain sponsorship through H-1B, or are they able to lawfully work in the USA without needing an H-1B sponsorship?
The last time I did the lottery, I think did any DV lottery was about 22 years ago. The reason we did not take up lotteries because you don't need lawyers for these. So my knowledge is severely limited, but I'll tell you something that I remember. I do not know if it works for you. Now, if you are in the United States and you win the lottery, the DV lottery, you must receive a green card approval within that fiscal year. If you don't, you lose your lottery. That's why the government gets sued all the time, because they're delaying and not processing these cases within the same fiscal year. Once, of course, you get your green card, you're good to go. But what happens in the interim? You still have to maintain status before you file the last step of the green card process. And you also need work authorization. So if you have a choice, please have an H-1B. It is a great way to keep a safety net around you.
Perfect. We have some compliments. Thank you, sir. Thank you. This has been so informative. I'm glad to have joined today. Thank you for this and for your time. Rajiv Ji, can I register a franchise business on my name while I am on H-1B?
You know, if I had $1 for each time I've answered questions about doing business on H-1B, I would have hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So the answer is no. We've had situations where we were able to help an employee hire themselves to their own business. Okay, we did, one case was a graduate of an MIT, I think it was MIT, an MIT incubation, where MIT, I think, started off with $1 million seed money, and the individual owned majority of the stock. The problem with, you asked a different question, I'll get to that. That's an easy one to answer. The more difficult one is the one that I'm answering, the one that you haven't asked. So I'm on H-1B and I'm a lawyer. I want to start a business on the side. Okay. First thing is there going to be an employer-employee relationship between the business and I? That's required for H-1B. Employer-employee relationship presupposes that somebody can fire me. So when I am the king and I am the peasant, who can fire me? The way around that, or the way through that, I don't want to make it sound like a sleazy method. It's perfectly legal. We don't hide anything from the government. We tell them that I'm the majority stockholder, but I have an independent board of directors that can fire me. And that hiring-firing provision is in my either articles of incorporation or bylaws. So it's a part of our charter. Now, here's the interesting thing, or the sad thing. You can get the approval from the USCIS on those bases. We've done it many times. But when you go for visa stamping, you could be stuck for months and months and months. Somebody contacted us a year and a half ago, not our client. He was stuck in India, similar situation, good company, well, doing quite well. We even sued the government. We lost that case. I knew going in, we are going to lose. I told him that. The only hope is if we can settle the case, we should be okay. Otherwise, on the merits, we'll lose, and we lost. He's still stuck in India now 2 years later. Why? Because the consulates approach the same body of laws differently than the USCIS. That's just to keep your life interesting and to make sure that I can eat. I don't starve. So they make things doubly difficult just for those two reasons. Now, number one is, do I have employer-employee relationship? Number two, how does my degree in law help me run a bed and breakfast, for example? I can understand if I have a degree in hospitality, that might be relevant. So second question you would ask yourself is my degree relevant to what I'm doing or I'm going to be doing in business? Leaving that aside, now coming to your question, the reason I needed to lay this context is so that you understand the difference between the two situations. One, where you just own the business and you become an employee of the company. You own the business and you become an employee. Your question was, can I have a business without being an employee? And the answer is no, because you're generating income. My favorite example, income from an activity. My favorite example is, think about passive investments like this. Passive investments are okay, active or not. And this is my take, it's not written anywhere. Passive investment is when you buy stock, let's say in IBM. This is not stock advice. I'm merely taking an example. Don't go run and buy stock in IBM. I have no idea how the stock is doing. If you buy stock in IBM, you can't go to wherever their headquarters is and pull up a chair and say, you know what, today I feel like managing the company, move over. You can't do that. Your investment is passive. You cannot actively participate in the business. That's a typical example of allowed activities. Who can stop you from investing in the stock market? But what if you're churning stock every day and you become a day trader? That may be active income. That may not be passive income. So take that context and export it to your question. Can I have a business on the side? That's an active business. No. But what if you had a small business in which your best friend was running the business, he's a US citizen, and you are merely sitting on the sidelines feeding money? I think that would be okay. Just be careful. You are isolated from activity. Does that help?
Perfect. I hope so. Let us know or speak up. Rohan, I know you had your hand raised. I'm going to read out your question, or if you want to read it out yourself, please go ahead. Hello, Mr. Khanna. Could you please, I see you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rohan.
Hello.
Don't call me Mr. Khanna. Call me Rajiv, please.
Hello, Rajiv. So, sir, I have one question. So, could you please give insight about multiple registration for H1B lottery? It's still so much confusing. The picture is not clear. I know a lot of people have similar question.
Are you sitting at a computer? You are sitting at a computer. Can you Google something?
Sure, sir.
Google Rajiv S. Khanna, The Economic Times.
I have ready in front of me.
The very first article gives you the answer.
Okay, sir. Sure.
And actually, I did cover that. I said, yes, you can have multiple registrations as long as the companies are completely unrelated, zero relationship, the jobs are genuine, you're not just trying to increase your chances. That's definitely a sleazy thing to do, and the government can come after you for that. In fact, they can come after the companies really hard. They have said that we may refer these cases to US Department of Justice, because this year they have a declaration under penalty of perjury that the company must make, saying we are not colluding to increase the chances of the beneficiary. And if you violate that, you can go to prison for up to 5 years. Felony is a serious crime.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, we have one more. Thank you so much for explaining about CAP exempt H-1Bs. I'm currently on F1 OPT and I work for a CAP exempt employer, a nonprofit health system. I have 2 years of STEM OPT that I have not applied for yet, and I'm considering moving to a for-profit company within the next few months. Is it a good idea to skip CAP exempt H-1B from my employer this year to avoid concurrent jobs and try for the H-1B lottery for the next 2 years? Or is it too risky? And would you recommend a better strategy to secure a for-profit H-1B?
There isn't anything here that I can suggest to you which is beyond common sense and encroaches upon the laws. This is just common sense. So it's nice to have the ability to try for H-1B 3 times instead of twice, which is what you will do if you move. But what is the point of getting an H-1B, a non-profit H-1B? I don't see any point in it. You'll have trouble keeping your STEM OPT extensions also if you convert to H-1B. They will cancel your service. Okay. So what I would do if I were you, I would take my STEM OPT and join a for-profit, the normal CAP organization, and I'll have them apply for an H-1B both years. Hopefully it'll work out for you. I don't think there's any way around that. Of course, if it doesn't work out both times, then you could always go to a CAP H-1B and still keep trying for H-1B regular through the years that come.
All right, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to ask them and we'll get some answers in for you before we wrap up. Thanks a lot for explaining. Okay.
My pleasure. It's actually a pleasure to have some gaps. Normally we have a lot of people and very little time, and that becomes actually a little bothersome. It's nice to have a little time to answer every question properly.
Yeah, I think these sessions are always good, and it's a great size today, I would say. Good audience. Thank you so much for being so informative. Thank you, so informative. Thank you, lots of grateful people. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, Rajiv, feel free to elaborate on something else. Otherwise, I know the value of your time, so we can wrap it up and give them the right resources to find you, and all the articles you've written that have a lot of the answers for a lot of the questions.
Our website is quite informative. You can even post questions there. I try to answer them at least once a week. Just make sure you post in the right section. And 2, you can also join our own conference calls. I've been doing that for 25 years. We do one every other Thursday. So typically we don't have a lot of people, about 15 people. I tell them to cap off the participation to maybe 15. Anything more than that becomes complicated. I can't answer all the questions. So come by if you would like. And also my blog and the Economic Times entries. Usually I cover all the hot issues in ET and then we post it to my blog as well. Okay. So other than that, guys, so far so good. We are having some technical difficulties with the registration process, but that will be resolved. Plenty of time still left. I'm not worried about it. So just make sure that you get your lotteries in. And if you're going to do multiple, please talk with your lawyers, whoever is helping you. And if you don't have a lawyer helping you, just make sure you make a brief consultation with somebody. If the companies are completely unrelated and the jobs are genuine, there's no harm. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thanks for your time. If you want to reach him, help@immigration.com. I'll never forget it. And you can send him over a quick question and we'll keep you posted on LinkedIn if we're doing any more of these in the upcoming months. Have a great day, everyone.